Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are going to start with a question. And it's a question that it sounds simple, maybe even a little bit silly.
Aye.
But I have to warn you, if you actually sit with it for more than about 5 seconds, it is liable to induce a mild, maybe moderate existential crisis.
I love those kinds of questions. That's exactly why we're here. Let's hear it.
The question is this: who is actually running the show?
Okay.
When you wake up in the morning and you have that internal monologue going, the voice making the coffee, stressing about the commute, remembering you forgot to email Dave in accounting, we naturally assume that voice is the CEO.
Right.
We assume that voice is me. It's the captain of the ship.
The I in I am hungry or I am tired. Yeah, it feels like the center of gravity.
Exactly. But what if that voice isn't the CEO? What if that voice is just, I don't know, the anxious middle manager? What if it's just the guy in the mailroom, shuffling papers, frantically trying to keep things organized, while the actual decisions are being made by a silent partner you've never even formally met?
That is a terrifying thought. And it is precisely the territory we are walking into today.
It really is.
We're stepping into a landscape that challenges the most fundamental assumption we all wake up with. We are diving back into the Seth material.
It's been a minute since we tackled Seth. And for anyone who's new here, this isn't light reading. This is like mental cross-training.
It is intense. Specifically, we are cracking open session 146 from the early sessions, book 3, and this session was recorded way back on April 14th, 1965.
So we really need to transport ourselves. You have to picture the scene. It's the mid-60s, Elmira, New York. You've got Jane Roberts, the author, and her husband, Rob Butts. They're in their living room. It's late at night. There's probably cigarette smoke in the air, And Jane is channeling this personality essence known as Seth, while Rob is just furiously scribbling everything down in shorthand.
But before we get too deep into the metaphysics of the soul, we have to do the necessary housekeeping.
We do. We have to. So just to be totally clear for everyone listening, this deep dive is distributed completely free of charge on all major platforms. And it's for educational purposes. We aren't selling you a guru, we aren't selling a course, and we are certainly not asking for your soul.
Yeah.
We're just unpacking the text.
Absolutely. And we have to give credit where it is absolutely due. This material is published by the New Awareness Network. So if you find yourself having an epiphany or, let's be honest, a breakdown during this conversation, you need to go to the source.
Oh, seriously. Go to sethcenter.com/the early sessions, buy the books, support the archivists. We're just the tour guides here. Seth is the mountain.
A very steep, very foggy mountain.
So what is the mission for this deep dive? Because reading through the notes, this session feels a little heavier than usual. It's not just you create your reality. It feels more like a deconstruction of what a person actually is.
That is exactly the mission. We're going to try to understand Seth's radical distinction between the ego and the personality. We're going to look at why we construct these artificial boundaries around our lives, why we are terrified of action, and ultimately, we're going to tackle a concept that I think is the most profound takeaway from this whole session.
Okay.
The idea that the stability we all crave, the safety, the predictability, the routine, is actually a form of death.
Stability is death. Wow, that is a cheery bumper sticker. It's not going to sell well in the suburbs.
No, it certainly won't. But by the end of this hour, I think you'll understand why he says it. And you might even agree with it.
Okay, let's set the scene. Usually these sessions just start with Seth saying good evening and then launching straight into a lecture. But this one starts with a bit of a cold open involving Jane Roberts herself.
Yes. And this context is crucial. It's April 1965. Jane isn't feeling well. She's physically run down, dealing with some illness, maybe a flu, or just exhaustion. And just before the session is supposed to start, she has this glitch in her reality.
A glitch? Like in the Matrix?
Kind of. She describes it as an out-of-body experience, but a very specific kind. She says she felt like she had momentarily left her physical vessel and was in the process of returning to it.
Okay.
She wasn't floating around the ceiling, looking down at her body, nothing like that. She just had the distinct sensation of re-entry.
Huh. And usually when you read about astral projection or these kinds of, spiritual feats, the advice is always cleanse your body, fast for 3 days, be in peak physical condition.
Yeah.
But Jane was sick. She was miserable.
Exactly. And that is the clue. Seth uses this experience to launch the entire lecture. He tells her that she had this experience because she was ill.
That seems completely counterintuitive. Why would being sick help you leave your body? You'd think you'd be too tired to go anywhere.
It all comes down to the ego.
Our anxious middle manager.
Yeah. Think of the ego as a security guard, a very diligent, maybe slightly paranoid security guard standing at the door of your perception.
Mm.
Its job is to make sure you focus on physical reality.
Right.
Look at the table, look at the chair, pay the bills. Don't look at the ghosts. Don't listen to the telepathic signals. Just focus on the physical.
So it's a filter, keeps all the noise out.
It's a heavy-duty filter.
Mm.
And maintaining that filter takes energy,
Mm.
massive amounts of energy.
Yeah.
We don't realize how much effort we burn just ignoring the rest of reality.
Wow.
So when Jane was sick, her energy reserves were low, the security guard was exhausted, he fell asleep at his post.
And while the guard was snoozing, the personality, the real Jane, slipped out the back door for a quick look around.
Precisely. Seth says, and I'm paraphrasing just a bit here, but he says, your experiences occurred when the ego, because of your illness, was momentarily exhausted, its control lessened. The personality was then momentarily aware of realities that the ego would ordinarily attempt to block.
That is fascinating. It implies that these supernatural experiences aren't something we have to add to ourselves. They aren't something we have to climb a mountain to get. They're happening all the time right now, but we are actively blocking them.
That's the implication. You are effectively holding the door shut with your shoulder, 24 hours a day, to keep the weirdness out.
Yeah.
When you get sick or exhausted, or maybe when you're in that twilight state between sleep and waking, your shoulder slips, the door cracks open, and the wider reality floods in.
That really redefines burnout, doesn't it? Maybe when people say they're falling apart, they're actually just opening up.
It's a distinct possibility. You know, the cracks in the armor are where the light comes in, as the song goes. But the ego hates those cracks. It wants to seal them up immediately. It panics when the guard falls asleep.
So this sets up the central conflict of the session. We have these two players, the ego and the personality. And Seth uses a word to describe the personality that I found really, really difficult to wrap my head around at first. He calls it action.
Yes, this is where we have to leave our standard dictionary at the door. When Seth says action, he doesn't mean doing stuff. He's not talking about running or jumping or, filming an explosion.
I have the quote right here. He says, "The personality as you know it is action. You can only observe it in motion, for it is never still. And to probe into it yourself is to change it."
Okay, and put a pin in that last part. To probe into it is to change it. That's pure quantum physics. That is the Heisenberg uncertainty principle applied to the human soul.
Refresh my memory on Heisenberg. I know it involves Walter White, but remind me of the physics.
The basic idea in quantum mechanics is that you cannot measure the position and the momentum of a particle at the exact same time with perfect precision. By the mere act of observing it, you disturb it. You
Right.
change it. The observer is part of the equation.
So Seth is saying, I am not a noun, I'm not a thing, I'm a verb, I'm an event.
Exactly. We grew up thinking, I am a person. I am a solid object that moves through time like a ship moves through water. Seth says, no, you are the water. You are a process that is constantly flowing, constantly changing. You are never the same thing for 2 consecutive seconds.
But I feel like the same thing. I mean, I look in the mirror and it's the same guy as yesterday. I have the same memories. I have the same scar on my knee.
And that feeling, that is the illusion created by the ego. And this is where we really get into the meat of the session. The conflict between the personality, which is action, flux, change, and the ego, which is stasis, control, stability.
Okay, so let's break down these two characters. First, we have the personality.
The personality is the inner self. It's deep, it's fluid, it is wildly creative, it exists in multiple dimensions at once, in the dream world, in the physical world. It is the source of your vitality. And crucially, it knows that it is immortal.
It knows it survives death.
Yes, because it's pure energy, it's action. It loves change because change is its very nature.
So personality equals the cool, confident, immortal shapeshifter, the real me.
Yes. Now meet the ego.
The surface self, the cool, uncool me.
The ego is the part of you that looks at this swirling, chaotic river of action and screams, stop. It wants to build a dam. It wants to stand on dry land. It attempts to stand apart from action.
But why? Why is it so afraid of the flow?
Because the ego is a construct. It's a tool. And tools want to be stable, right?
Yeah.
The ego defines itself by its boundaries. I am this, I am not that. I am a doctor, I am not a lawyer. I am awake, I am not asleep. if everything is fluid, if everything is constantly changing, the ego feels like it's dissolving. It feels like it's dying.
The analogy we talked about before we started recording, I want to bring that in here because it really helped me visualize this whole dynamic.
A jazz musician.
Yes. Okay, so imagine the personality is this genius, chaotic jazz musician. It's on stage, improvising, changing keys, playing notes that aren't even on the scale. It's totally in the flow, completely present, creating something brand new every single millisecond.
Right. Pure creativity, pure action. There's no script.
And the ego is the music producer sitting in the recording booth behind the glass.
And the producer is panicking.
He's freaking out. He's yelling into the talkback mic. Cut, stop, you can't just change the tempo like that. We need a verse-chorus-verse structure. We need a 3-minute single we can sell on the radio. Stick to the script. We need a product.
That is a perfect encapsulation. The ego wants a product. It wants something it can package up and say, this is me. The personality just wants a process. It just wants to play.
And this creates a huge amount of tension.
Massive tension. I
Yeah.
mean, neurosis, anxiety, depression. Seth implies that a lot of this comes from the producer trying to strangle the jazz musician. The producer is trying to force the infinite into a tiny little box.
And Seth goes into the specific anxiety in detail. He says the ego has a problem with time. All of it. Past, present, and future.
It's an equal opportunity hater of time. It feels threatened by the passage of time in any direction.
Okay, let's parse that out. Why does the ego fear the past? You'd think the past is safe. It's over. It's done.
But that's exactly why the ego hates it. It's over. The ego cannot change it. The ego is a total control freak, and the past is a closed book. It represents a complete loss of control.
I see.
I was that person, but I can't touch it anymore. It's a part of the self that has vanished. So to the ego, the past represents a death of a previous version of itself.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the future?
The future is the ultimate unknown. It's the void. The ego looks at the future and sees a million possibilities, and most of them it cannot control. Will I lose my job? Will I get sick? Will I die? The ego wants guarantees, and the future offers exactly none. The future is where the ego's authority isn't recognized yet.
And the present. This is the one that stumped me. I mean, usually spiritual teachers are telling us to be here now. The present is supposed to be the sweet spot. Why does the ego hate the present?
This is probably the most subtle and profound point in the whole session. The ego fears the present because the present is the moment of change.
Explain that.
Well, in the present moment, right now, as you are listening to this, you are changing. You are moving from what you were into what you will be. If you really truly pay attention to the present, you realize that the you of 5 minutes ago is gone.
Wow.
The cellular structure has changed. The thoughts have changed. The ego wants continuity of identity. It wants to believe it is a solid block of stone from birth to death. The present moment constantly proves that it is not. The present is the evidence that the ego is a liar.
So the present moment exposes the scam. It reveals that we are fluid.
Exactly. And the ego cannot handle that fluidity.
This leads to the quote that, honestly, it gave me a bit of a chill when I read it. Seth says, "It is the ego which fears death so strongly, and yet the stability which ego so urgently seeks would indeed result in a death, since no further action would be allowed."
It's a Greek tragedy. It really is. The ego is screaming, I want to be safe. I want nothing to change. I want to live forever just like this. But if it actually got what it wanted, total stability, no change, zero movement, that is the literal definition of a corpse.
A rock is stable. A corpse is stable.
Life is motion. Life is instability. So paradoxically, the ego is fighting against the very life force that keeps it alive. It is trying to kill itself in a desperate attempt to save itself.
It's tragic. It's like we're walking around with a suicidal dictator in our heads who thinks he's a survivalist.
That's a very apt description. And it explains why we are so terrified of letting go. We equate letting go with dying. But Seth says letting go is actually living, holding on. That's the death.
Okay, so if the ego is this delusional, anxious, control freak producer, why do we even have one? Is it a mistake? Did we take a wrong turn in evolution somewhere? Is it a biological error?
No. And Seth is very, very careful here. He doesn't say kill the ego. He doesn't say the ego is evil. He says it has a very specific, necessary function.
Which is?
It is a partitioning agent.
Partitioning, like a hard drive. You mean like C drive, do drive?
Sort of. Think about the inner self for a second. According to Seth, your inner self is connected to the collective consciousness, to other dimensions, to the electrical storms of the universe, to past lives, to future probabilities. It is a massive roaring ocean of data.
If I had access to all of that right now.
Yeah.
my head would explode.
You would be catatonic. You wouldn't be able to tie your shoes because you'd be too busy communicating with the sole of the shoelace. You'd be overwhelmed by the electrical impulses of the air conditioning.
Right. Total information overload.
So the ego steps in, it puts on the blinders, it says, okay, ignore the telepathy, ignore the probable futures, ignore the electrical fields, focus on the tiger in the bushes, focus on the red light at the intersection, focus on making the sandwich.
It narrows the beam of the flashlight.
It narrows the beam so we can function in physical space-time. It makes us effective. It allows us to manipulate matter.
Mm-hmm.
The problem isn't that we have an ego. The problem is that the ego has forgotten it's just a part of the team.
It thinks it's the whole team.
It thinks the racetrack, the physical world, is the entire universe. It's like a horse with blinders that denies the existence of the field, the stable, and the sky simply because it can't see them.
If I can't see it, it's not real. That's the ego's motto.
And that brings us to the next section of the session, the illusion of boundaries. Because the ego loves lines. It loves categories.
Oh, yeah. This is me, that is you, this is real, that is a dream, this is alive, that is dead.
And Seth just takes a sledgehammer to all of those lines. He says, and I'm quoting here, if we isolate such portions of reality for the sake of discussion, such isolation is artificial. Any seeming barrier is artificial.
Let's push on this a little. Self and not self. I feel pretty distinct from you. I feel pretty distinct from the table.
Seth argues that this is an illusion of focus. At an atomic level, where do you end and the air begins? We are constantly exchanging atoms with the environment. At an emotional level, when you walk into a room and feel the vibe, are you separate from that vibe? He suggests we are part of a unified field. We are all action, interacting with action.
But the one that really gets me is the dream universe. Seth seems to put the dream universe on the exact same footing as the physical universe.
He does. He absolutely does. He says, the self is extended, existing within many dimensions. It extends as vitally and actually in the dream universe as it does in your own physical universe.
Okay, expert hat on. How can a dream be actual? I wake up, the dream is gone, it feels fake, it feels like a movie playing in my head.
Seth would ask, gone where? Just because you left the room doesn't mean the room disappeared. He argues that when you dream, you are tuning in to a different frequency of reality, one that is just as valid, just as electric, just as consequential as this one. You live there. You have a self that operates there.
So I'm living a double life, or a triple life, a quadruple life.
You are multidimensional. We just have a very, very convincing mechanism, the ego, that gives us amnesia every morning so we don't get confused.
Forget about the flying. You have a mortgage, put on your tie.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But notice what happens when that mechanism slips. Look at Jane's out-of-body experience. She wasn't hallucinating. She was perceiving the action without the partition. She was seeing the raw data.
Seth also ties this into the physical world in a way that sounds really sci-fi. He talks about the electrical universe.
This is a crucial technical point. We tend to separate psychology and physics. Feelings are in here, inside the skull. Atoms are out there in the world. Seth just refuses that separation. He says, the self is as much a part of the electrical universe as it is a part of the world of psychological motivation.
What does that mean in practical terms?
It means your thoughts aren't just abstract wisps of smoke. They are energy. They have an electromagnetic reality. When you think a thought, you are moving energy. You are changing the electrical environment around you.
So when I'm sitting in a room fuming, angry at someone but not saying a single word.
You are broadcasting. You are creating an electrical storm. You are action. And the people around you, their inner selves, they pick up on it instantly.
Which explains the vibe. You know when you walk into a room and a couple has just been fighting, even if they're both smiling? The air just feels thick. It feels heavy.
The action has been disturbed. The ego says, everything is fine. Look at our smiles. The personality says, the air in here is radioactive. The electrical field knows.
It makes you realize how much energy we waste on what Seth calls camouflage.
Yes. We spend a tremendous amount of energy pretending to be solid, stable, rational objects. We camouflage our inner volatility, and that effort is exhausting.
It goes right back to Jane getting sick. The ego ran out of juice. It couldn't keep the camouflage up anymore.
And maybe that's a lesson for us. Maybe we shouldn't try so hard to keep it up. Maybe we should let the jazz musician play a little more often.
But if we stop trying, if we let the jazz musician take over, don't we risk chaos? Don't we risk just drifting away into nothingness?
And this is the final piece of the puzzle. Seth doesn't say fire the producer. He doesn't say burn down the recording studio. He says the struggle between the two is the point.
So the conflict is the feature, not the bug.
Precisely, he says. It is precisely this struggle between ego's struggles for stability and the personality's attempt to expand spontaneously that is at the basis of much of mankind's achievements, and that is certainly the basis for much of his art.
He has a beautiful definition of art in this session. He calls it nostalgia.
It's incredible. He says, in his art, we have the nostalgia of the ego for past time and for lost control of a self that has already vanished.
Let's unpack that. Art is the ego's nostalgia.
Think about a photograph, or a painting, or a poem about a lost love. What is it? It is an attempt to freeze time. It's the ego saying, this moment was beautiful, it's gone now, I can't hold it, but I can make a copy of it. I can make a statue.
So art is a coping mechanism for the ego's fear of time.
It's the ego's compromise. It allows the personality to provide the inspiration, the wild emotional flood, but the ego provides the frame. It provides the canvas. It captures the lightning in a bottle.
Without the ego, the lightning would just flash and then disappear.
And without the personality, the ego would just have empty bottles. You would have structure with no soul.
You need both. You need the crazy artist and the disciplined manager to make a masterpiece.
When they fight, you get neurosis. When they collaborate, you get genius.
Seth also brings up aggression in this context, which seems a little out of left field.
Yes. And we usually view aggression as this purely negative thing. But Seth links it to the ego's drive to control and manipulate the physical world. He says, all aggression is not detrimental, meaning that sometimes you need to push against the world. You need to carve out a space for yourself. If we were purely fluid personalities, we might just drift in the ether forever, enjoying the bliss. The ego gives us the oomph to change physical matter, to build cities, to write books, to record deep dives.
It's the engine. It's a terrified, neurotic engine, but it gets the car up the hill.
Exactly.
We've covered a massive amount of ground here. I feel like my own ego is starting to get a little twitchy.
It's probably checking the time. Wonder when it can get back to its schedule.
It is. So let's try to synthesize this. If you, listening right now, take 3 things away from this deep dive into session 146, what should they be?
Okay, takeaway 1. The you that you think you are, the ego, is not the CEO. It is a specialized, slightly anxious middle manager designed to filter reality so you can function in the physical world. It is a tool, not the master.
Okay. Takeaway 2. The real you, the personality, is action. It's a verb. It is a flowing process that exists in multiple dimensions, connects to the electrical universe, and survives the death of the physical body.
And takeaway 3. The goal isn't to kill the ego, but to understand it, to recognize that the stability it craves is actually a form of death. Life is change. Life is flux. The struggle between the two is what creates art, culture, and human experience.
It really changes how I look at my own anxiety. When I feel that tightening in my chest because plans are changing or the future is uncertain, that's just the producer freaking out.
Pet him on the head. Tell him, I know you're scared. It's okay. We're just going to play some jazz now.
Sit down, have a donut, let the band play. Now, before we let everyone go, we have to leave them with something to chew on. A final provocation.
I have one in mind.
Let's hear it.
We talked about how the ego fears death, because death is the ultimate loss of control. And we talked about how the personality survives death.
Right.
So here's the question. The voice in your head right now, the one listening to this,
Yeah.
the one that identifies as John or Sarah,
Yeah.
the one that remembers 3rd grade and worries about taxes, is that voice the personality, or is that voice the ego?
Oh, that's tricky.
Because if that voice is the ego, then the thing you think of as you doesn't make it.
So the you that survives might be a complete stranger to the you that is listening right now.
It's the difference between the actor and the character. Does Hamlet survive when the play ends? No. The actor goes home. Hamlet dies on stage. Are you the actor, or are you Hamlet?
That is haunting. And I think I'm going to be staring at the ceiling tonight thinking about that.
Good luck with that.
Thank you to everyone for listening to this deep dive. Again, this was based on session 146 of the Seth material. Go to sethcenter.com, the early sessions, to get the books from the New Awareness Network. Don't take our word for it. Read the raw data.
It's worth the effort. It really is.
We'll see you next time. And try not to let your security guard fall asleep. Or actually, maybe do.